What is going on, guys? My name is Sena and welcome back to another video. In this video, I'm going to be VOD reviewing a Bronze 2 Jett player who had a pop-off match MVP game where he top fragged, but he made a ton of mistakes that are keeping him stuck in this low rank. These mistakes are what leads people to be inconsistent and pop off some games but do really bad other games. I'm going to be pointing out all of these mistakes to you guys in this video, and this video will help you no matter what rank you are. Right before we actually get into the VOD review, I want to show you guys the scoreboard of this game just so you can see how deceiving looks can be. Looking at this scoreboard, you can see that he ended the game with a 2.3 KD and completely carried his team. Looking at this scoreboard, you would assume that he played this game extremely well and he's on track to rank up, but why is he still stuck in this rank? You're about to find out why in this video, but right before we actually jump into the VOD review, if you also want to look at your scoreboards and past games and overall stats without actually having to get on Valorant, I want to introduce you to today's sponsor, Valorant Tracker. Valorant Tracker is the most popular tool for checking and comparing your stats. With Valorant Tracker, you can look at your KD ratios, win rates, headshot percentages, and so much more. You can compare your old stats with your recent stats and see how much you've improved or what you need to work on. Not only this, but Valorant Tracker has a huge, constantly updating video library of lineups and strategies with every agent on every map in the game. If that wasn't cool enough already, the best part about Valorant Tracker is how it's 100% free to download and use, and I've been using it for well over a year now. So what are you waiting for? Go down in the pinned comment or description and click my link to download Valorant Tracker today. Thank you again to Valorant Tracker for sponsoring this video, and with all of that being said, guys, let's jump right back into the video. Our friend here is playing Jett on Lotus, which is a super strong pick because Lotus is a map where a lot of the choke points can be really tough to get past without a Jett creating space. Starting off with the pistol round here, he decides to buy a Ghost and one Smoke. This is a pretty standard buy, and I actually like this buy, and it's probably what I would also opt for, although I tend to buy a Sheriff on this map, particularly because of the long-range duels. The first thing I want you guys to notice about this round is how everybody is grouped up A main and ready to go for an A hit. What actually ends up happening though is somebody on the team calls for a C hit instead at the last second. This causes the entire team to rotate C as the barriers are dropping. If you guys look at the clock on the top of the screen, it's at 1:35 when he first peaks this angle. A round of Valorant is 1 minute and 40 seconds long, meaning that there was a 5-second window between the barriers dropping and him peaking this angle. This means that there could be an enemy posted up behind mound or on the far right behind the box. What our friend ends up doing here though is just running through everything without a care in the world, not clearing any of the close angles. He has his Crosshair flinging around in random directions and he's fiddling with his knife. This is the first big mistake that I noticed in this VOD, and this comes down to a lack of awareness and lack of timing awareness. Did you know that on Icebox, as soon as the barriers go down, somebody walking down tube will peek you at exactly 1 minute and 32 seconds on the clock? This is called timing awareness, and it's the ability to predict an enemy's position given the amount of time they've had to reposition. Just based off of this round alone, I can tell that his timing awareness needs a lot of work. In the higher ranks, it's almost guaranteed that somebody would have pushed up and posted up on one of these deeper angles C long, and he would have gotten instantly punished for this. Another thing that I noticed is when he's walking up to bend on sight, he pulls out his knife right as he's about to expose himself to an uncleared angle. It's important to always have your gun out and your crosshair placed on an angle as you're clearing it, because you have no idea whether or not someone is playing back here. I see him pull out his knife a lot during this VOD, and this is a really bad habit that I used to talk about on this channel way back when I first started making Valorant videos. I'm sure a lot of you guys watching this video do the same thing, so make sure to keep this in mind. Moving on from this, in the post plant, him and his Omen decide to push CT to look for some kills. Omen gets one kill and then gets instantly traded by Harbor. Our friend ends up whiffing on him completely and he gets away scot-free. The main issue here is that he's not taking his time with his shots. As you can see in this frame here, he's shooting his gun before the crosshair is even placed on Harbor's head. Harbor was crouched, meaning that his movement is extremely slow and he can't strafe at all. This should have been a completely free headshot, but he rushed the shot and didn't take his time. It's important to slow down when you're playing and make sure that you actually have your crosshair lined up with someone before you decide to pull the trigger. After Harbor gets away, he pushes up a bit to take some extra shots and he spots Breach there, meaning that there are 2 enemies currently fighting him. After he falls back to cover, he decides to re-peek this angle, which is fine, but he peeks super wide, exposing himself to both players and causing himself to get mowed down. Wide swinging was definitely not the play here, especially since he already knew that there was 2 enemies there. This is another mistake and it has to do with movement. If he wants to re-peek this angle and keep fighting CT, instead of peeking wide, he should just be jiggling the angle and taking quick peek shots, trying to get a quick headshot. Doing this would be 10 times safer and keeps him behind cover. By wide swinging, what you're essentially doing is gambling whether or not you get the kill, and even if you get one, you're just going to get instantly traded by his teammate. His movement needs to be much snappier here, and he needs to learn how to strafe better. The key takeaway from this fight is to learn when it's appropriate to wide swing and to jiggle peek. Wide swinging is only good if you know that you're only peeking one person, or if you have your dash ready to go or your Reyna that can dismiss out. But in this situation, you 100% knew that there were 2 enemies there and you don't have your dash, making this a really bad peek, which caused you to get killed. I will say that his crosshair placement when peeking this angle is much better than before, which we love to see. The key takeaways for this pistol round is 1, be aware of all of the enemy positions given the amount of time in the round. 2, make sure that you're clearing every angle thoroughly and making sure that you have your gun out at all times. 3 is to never rush your shot and make sure that you actually have the shot lined up with your crosshair before you decide to shoot your weapon. And 4 is to make sure that you understand when it's appropriate to jiggle peek or wide swing, because if you wide swing at the wrong time, it'll get you killed, just like our friend here in this VOD. Moving on from this, I want to talk a little bit about the 3rd round. On the 3rd round here, he should be bonusing and making sure that he can buy on the 4th round, because they're gonna have rifles this round, and if he loses this round after forcing, they'll be broke for the 4th round, making the score 2-2. What he actually ends up doing though is throwing a free Marshall off of the map and forcing a Vandal. This is really bad, like I mentioned earlier, because if his team lost this round, they would have been broke for the next round, forcing the game to be tied 2-2. It's always, and I mean always, better to just save the guns from 2nd round and use those on 3rd round and make sure that everybody has enough to buy Vandals on 4th round. This will give you a chance to win round 3 while also ensuring that you'll be able to have a full buy on 4th round and stop the snowball effect that the enemies could get if you force and lose 3rd round. Luckily for him though, his team ends up winning this round, so he doesn't learn from this mistake and will likely do it in his next games that could cost him rounds. That's all I really wanted to say about this round. Now let's move on to round 4, where he actually gets himself a nice little clutch. He's in a 2v2 with his Sage, who ends up dying and turning it into a 1v2. He peeks C main, killing the Viper, dashing out, and then he also kills the Yoru that's rushing him, and he gets himself a nice clutch. This was a super important round for him to win, so it's great that he was able to clutch here, but this clutch was super sloppy. His crosshair was way too low on both of these kills, and he really relied on spraying here. You need to focus more on headshots, because in the higher ranks, he would have gotten instantly punished for this poor crosshair placement. Remember that headshots are king in an extremely fast time to kill game like Valorant, and in the higher ranks, it's basically headshot or nothing. His mechanics are really good for a bronze player, so if he just brushes up on this crosshair placement and movement, I can see him being an absolute demon. Moving on from this, let's take a look at round 6. On round 6, he takes tree control and dashes straight onto site and gets a first blood for his team. This was a really nice shot and a huge opening for his team, because now they have man advantage and sight, meaning that they pretty much are guaranteed to win this round if they play it correctly from here. What he ends up doing though is up drafting to top site and trying to take another fight spawn. He ends up pushing out past the box, putting himself in an angle that he can't fall back from, and forces himself to fight and die. This is a combination of two mistakes. One, bad positioning, and two, over-aggressiveness / overheating. Realistically, there was no point in peeking this angle at all, and playing with your team is always the better option when you have a man advantage. It's important to understand that your decisions within a round depend heavily on whether or not your team has the man advantage. As long as the team with more players alive sticks together and trade each other out, they are guaranteed to win the round, so remember that and keep that in mind because this was a very bad push. Next, I want to talk about this position that he put himself in. By pushing up past this box, he is now exposing himself to two angles, gambling which one he'll get peeked from and not being able to fall back if he gambles incorrectly. It's very important to have awareness and be aware of what angles you're exposing yourself to and what your plan is for the rest of the round. This goes back to the same thing that happened in pistol round, where he wasn't aware of what angles the enemies could peek him from, and here he is getting punished for it. They ended up winning this round, but if they lost, this would have completely been his fault. Remember that just because you're up numbers doesn't mean that you're guaranteed to win the round, and it's important to play the round accordingly to the man advantage. He had a really nice entry at the start of the round though, and he definitely did set up his team for success here, so I will give him credit on that. Moving on from this, I just want to briefly talk about round 9, where he makes a mistake that a lot of Jet players make. Him and his team are going C, and as soon as the barriers drop, he pops his dash to peek this first angle, which I actually don't mind, but then he ends up burning it for no reason. This dash here onto mound provided zero value for him or his team, and it could have been used to take site. Jet's dash is arguably the best piece of util in the entire game of Valorant, so it's super important that you're using it for the highest value possible. Wasting Jet's best piece of utility this early on into the round is definitely a blunder. The reason why I mention this is because I see this common theme a lot with lower ranked Jet players, where they mindlessly burn their dash and don't actively use it to either engage in combat or to take space with. Just thought that that was something that I thought that I should mention. Moving on from this, let's talk about round 12. On round 12, his team pushes C and takes the site. Omen picks up a frag here in Waterfall, but he ends up getting too greedy and pushing up and dying, throwing the man advantage, making it now a 4v4, which we talked about last round. Hopefully that Omen watches this video too, but what I want to talk about here is after the Omen dies, our friend Jet decides to push CT to look for a pick. Personally, I think pushing this is fine, and I honestly probably would have done the same because the man advantage is even, so looking for a pick here could be huge. What ends up happening though is when he's pushing CT, he's holding W while clearing all of these angles, which ends up getting him killed. I've preached to you guys in so many videos why holding W is really bad for clearing angles, and this is a prime example of why. When you're holding W while you're peeking, you're an extremely easy target to hit, and your accuracy is all messed up. His crosshair placement is also way too low here and definitely needs to be brought up to head level. Remember that in Valorant, it's important to only use A and S to peek angles and never peek while holding W. Had he just taken his time to strafe back and forth to clear each of these angles, this would have been such a free kill for him. He lost this fight because of his poor movement and also because of his poor crosshair placement. His team ends up losing this round, but he could have so easily won this round if he actually picked up this frag by having better movement. He does the same thing again on round 16, where he's peeking B main while holding W and doesn't expect the Phoenix to be there and dies again. If you struggle with peeking with A and S, I would recommend binding your W key to knife and then going in a custom game and just practice clearing angles using only A and S. In the higher ranks, this is what everybody does, and you have to get accustomed to this if you want to improve at Valorant. His team ends up cleaning up this round, and he ends up winning this game 13-3, going 23-10 with a 2.3 KD. Like I showed you guys earlier, on paper, this looks like an absolute pop-off game, but after actually analyzing it round by round, you can see how many mistakes he really made. The reason why he's stuck in bronze and can't rank up is because of these fundamental errors that he's making, causing him to be inconsistent from game to game. I can guarantee you that he's going to get punished for these mistakes in future games if he continues to make them. His mechanics are definitely above average for a bronze player, and if he cleans up the stuff that I talked about in this video, I can see him ranking up extremely fast. Anyways guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and learned something from it as well. Remember that if you want me to review your VOD in a future video, make sure to join my Discord server and submit your VODs in there. I'd love to take a look at them. If this video gets received well, I think I might make this a series where I start VOD reviewing your guys' gameplay and giving you guys tips. Anyways guys, if you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, don't forget to drop a like down below and also subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Thank you guys so much for all of the support you've been showing me on the recent videos and on the short form content. You guys are the best. I love you all. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day or night to watch this video, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace out.